This week on Supercars Torque, Jamie fights back, Todd Hazelwood's got a sexy new look, we're going back to the Bend, Bathurst is the final round of the season, and we cover off idiots fighting over the internet. Let's start with the big news for the week. Who is the best Ryan in the pit lane? So, Erebus's Barry Ryan and DGR Team Penske's Ryan Story got into a bit of a Twitter war on the internet. Insert meme about fighting on the internet here. Apparently, Penske had posted up about a cricket match or something that the guys were playing as a sponsor activation thing, and Barry Ryan, as a bit of an off-the-cuff remark, typed in "Who cares?" on Twitter, I think it was, and which then became a big war of words about activation and things like that, and really it's fighting over the internet, boys. If you're going to take things like that personally, yeah, Barry Ryan probably shouldn't have said it in the position he's in. But I think about some of the comments that me and my mates post to each other. Yeah, who cares? Not something we should really be concerned about. We are going to the Bend this year. So the on-again, off-again relationship Supercars has had with the Bends this year. After Sam Shahin's big cry session over the internet as well. September 19, 20 and September 26, 27, we will be having back-to-back races at the Bend. So that after the second Townsville next weekend, going to have a week's break and down at the Bend. This means Bathurst is going to be the final on the 15th to 18th of October now. So they get a little bit of a break to get from South Australia to Bathurst and get everything in order for Bathurst. This does mean Sandown, Simmons, Wanneroo and Sydney Motorsport Park won't be holding races for the rest of the year either. Now, they are also talking about having a test day or so and some co-driver running at the Bend. Not sure if that's going to be before, in between or after. But if you were going to have the co-drivers in Adelaide or, in South Australia at the Bend for testing, could we maybe see a slightly longer race in the second one at the Bend? Just saying, Supercars. So the other thing, they've come out and said it might not be the same circuit layout both times. So everyone jumps on the bandwagon, yeah, let's use the really long GT course. Part of the issue I had with the races at the Bend previously is that everyone gets spread out, and because of the type of circuit it is, and because these cars have too much aero, which is still a problem, as we saw on the weekend a bit with the lack of passing and things like that, we probably don't want them, over 7.7 Ks or whatever it is. That'll be probably a 2.5 minute lap. There'll just be seconds between every car, and just so what I would suggest is using one of the smaller layouts. I might put a little map up there, and because you've got where you go around that first bit, and then you got a little infield bit, and then you dick around, and then I think it's the circuit layout that the TCR used without the little dig. But you could add that little diggy bit in for a bit of fun, and have the normal layout for the 500 on the next weekend. Just would be a bit of fun, to just see more than one co-driver race this year, even if maybe it's a bit shorter one on the, maybe we have a bit of a sprint on the Saturday, or maybe like a Sandown kind of thing, but we have 500 Ks over the weekend, and you have a little, a 50 or so on the Saturday with main drivers, of 50 or so on the Saturday with the co-drivers, and then have like a 400 maybe on the sun. Anyway, that's me talking out loud, but the calendar has finally been finalised again for the 54th time this year, but apparently that's it. The finale will be at Bathurst and Scott McLaughlin will be crowned champion again. So, on to the weekend in Townsville. Todd Hazelwood came out with a sexy new black duck seat covers look. Looks really good. It's funny, I did see, I think it was the Sleuth posted up a picture about a week or so ago of the Patronus livery that Tim Blanchard ran last year as the wildcard entry that he had over in Wanneroo. And the caption something, like, when are we going to see a sexy paint job like this again? And then bang, on the weekend, I reckon Noon's probably had a bit of a heads up on, what was coming. Car looks great. There should be more of this kind of thing, because some of them are, in comparison, looking quite plain. Not mentioning any names. Nick Percat's R&J Batteries one. Few little notes I've jotted down from over the weekend. Jack LeBrock had another one of those wheel kind of falling out of the car Tickford issues that seems to be cropping up a lot. It seems to be Tickford. This time it wasn't your usual car-to-car contact, but once again we saw a wheel falling out of a Tickford car. Maybe they need to beef up that suspension a little bit. Shane Van Gisbergen apparently using Jamie Whincup's brake pads. No, he's not getting his second-hand ones, but apparently they run different brake setups with driver preference. I think this is quite a common thing. You hear about it a lot more in F1 than what you do in the supercars. Apparently for some reason they didn't get into the telecast. Can only assume it's a COVID-related supply thing that Shane's having to use Jamie's, and that's why Shane had a rather anonymous weekend. That's what the commentators were kind of leaning towards. I just thought it was strange, without an explanation as to why. If you put your tinfoil hat on, you could say, once again, team favouring Jamie over Shane, the owner getting his choice over the not owner driver. Who knows? And there was a lot of cars over the weekend that seemed to have a jammed rear left wheel nut in the pit stops. That seemed to be a real sticking point for quite a few of the teams. And I wonder if maybe it was rubbing up against a wall that was causing that. It just seemed, there was probably two of them over the weekend, but it just seemed that was an issue that quite a few guys had. And one thing that I quite enjoyed over the weekend was that the tyres did degrade, so there was some different strategies with guys stopping early, guys going long, guys splitting the race in half, and then you had people coming through the field at different rates at the end. Like you'd see some guys stop early and then seem to make a big jump up, and then you'd have the guys who then stopped late and would come back out and punch through the field, and then you had more the Jamie Whincup, split the race in half and just go out and lead and dominate. Didn't happen in the third race though, but it was a very good weekend for Jamie. So, on to the racing for the weekend. Really, there was one incident to talk about, and, well, it was a racing incident. Basically, everyone just got all excited and blew their load going into turn one. Just a typical turn one accident down there. It was interesting. You saw Scott McLaughlin in the middle of the pack because he forgot how to qualify for the first couple of races, and you saw he got himself kind of right against the wall, kind of nearly right out of it. But you just see the way they kind of barrel in there, and it's hard. You can't really blame anyone for that. It was just unfortunate. There was a list of cars destroyed. Shane Van Gisbergen, Rick Kelly, Andre Heimgartner, Todd Hazelwood, Macaulay Jones, basically all out of the race. And once again, well, poor Kelly's losing both cars essentially, and once again Brad Jones, 2 cars destroyed in that turn 1. They keep bouncing back though. We did get to see over the weekend though, Jamie went and won the first 2 races very convincingly, and he was still on the podium in race 3. He won the round overall, and now only 123 points behind Scott McLaughlin, which, as you saw over the weekend, really isn't much because Scott won the 3rd race, and he actually, considering where he started, he fought back to 7th and 6th in the first 2 races. So they were good fight backs, but it did take about 50 points out of his championship lead. It's looking a little bit tighter at the top. I expected him to, walk away with a slightly bigger lead here, and then another slightly bigger lead after next weekend, and then we all assumed that there'd be 2 races at Queensland Raceway, and he'd have a 300-point lead going into Bathurst. The way it's looking now is very unlikely. If Whincup has another weekend like that next weekend, and then we go to the Bend, which it will be interesting to see who comes out on top at the Bend, because 2018 Triple Eight were in another postcode to everybody else. Scott had a really good 2019 there, but that was the round before Triple Eight got the Commodore helping hand before Pukekohe and Bathurst, where they Commodores were a little bit quicker at those rounds. So there was kind of rumours of a bit of, fudging the figures at the Bend last year with Triple Eight. So it'll be interesting. Other notables for the weekend. Cam Waters came 2nd overall. Chaz was 3rd, which Chaz was 4th for the weekend, but Chaz is 3rd overall in the championship. Now, all those people saying it was a bad move for him going to Walkinshaw, well, he probably might have won a couple of races if he was still at Tickford this year. But I still don't think Tickford probably doing quite a good enough job for even someone like Chaz to be challenging the other 2 for the championship. So Chaz is basically where he was going to be if he was at Tickford, but they seem to be, it's been a long time saying this, but Walkinshaw's actually seem to be progressing forward rather than backwards in the field. So that in 2 years' time could be saying that was a brilliant move, Chaz. It will be interesting to see. Now, I've been getting a lot of customer feedback from you guys, which is great. Love getting your comments. Josh Black has asked me about a co-driver video, which I do have one planned. I was hoping to know who all the co-drivers were before we did one, and now there's not too many gaps in the racing to try and fit one in, but there will be a Bathurst preview video coming up, and finally the Tickford co-driver lineups were announced over the weekend. So we will be seeing Cam Waters and Will Davison together, Lee Holdsworth and Michael Caruso, Jack LeBrock and Mr. Moffat, and James Courtney and Brock Feeney together. And this is interesting in that you have got quite a few co-driver lineups there, probably 3 of the 4, where the co-driver is probably going to be faster than the main driver. I'll let you decide which ones you think are which. Greg Wallace has suggested I do a live chat during the races. Unfortunately, this probably won't work for me. I think I've probably mentioned this before. I do kind of, at the start of the day, I'll hit pause on the Foxtel coverage, and then I'll come in and out and watch the relevant parts. And to be honest, Saturday in Melbourne, it was a beautiful day. So I essentially watched the qualifying sessions and the race live. I was probably about 5-10 minutes out on them, but I went out because of the lovely day. I went outside and actually washed the motor vehicles for the first time in about 3 months. So by the time I actually came in and was catching up and watching on it, I was about 5 minutes behind for the race. So something like that wouldn't work for me, the way I kind of consume my motorsport these days. Bathurst, I will be sat on the couch from whatever time practice is in the morning, and I do not get up for the rest of the day. That one is a lock, and the others are a bit take it or leave it. But if anyone is interested, I am open to doing kind of a live Zoom thing where we can just have a chat about supercars, or if you've got any questions you want to ask me, kind of face to face, drop me an email. I would suggest probably a Wednesday or Thursday night would be a good time to do that after dinner. But if anyone is interested, drop me a line. We'll organise something. Quite open to that. And Ross Masters, we've been having a bit of a debate. He is sticking up for Fabian Coulthard and doesn't agree with my choice of Nick Percat as probably one of those best drivers in the field. It's always great to get people's feedback, even if they might be wrong. I think he's basically saying, Fabian's doing a pretty good job. What my argument with Fabian is that, we're all kind of, we've accepted the fact that Scott is probably going to go to IndyCar. So that means that there's a void there at Penske. And if, say Triple Eight, if Jamie Whincup decides to retire tomorrow, you've still got Shane Van Gisbergen over the weekend. I'm not so convinced, but you've got Shane Van Gisbergen there that can go and win a championship. Whereas I don't think you could confidently say that if Scott wasn't there, Fabian would be the man to go and win the championship. And then essentially, if you bring on a young bloke like Anton, he's probably not going to be ready to win a championship in that car for a year or two. So what my idea is that you bring on someone like Percat who can go and win a championship next year in that car, and then you bring on, your Anton to build him up over time. That's my issue with Coulthard being in that seat. So that's my review of the racing at Townsville weekend 1. More talked about news of the racing, but then there wasn't really that many incidents to talk to, only the one that really kind of wasn't anyone's fault, so there's no point in really going too deeply into it. I'd hate to think what the racing would have been like if they just had hard tyres. At least we had the degrading softs, and there were slightly short of tyres, so it did mean that you had to compromise a little bit over the weekend. So that kept the interest up. Let's hope that there's a bit more to talk about from the second lot, and just let's hope that no one goes out and dominates the weekend. Keep the comments coming. It's all great. As I said, comments down below. Supercars Torque at gmail.com, and especially if anyone's interested in doing a live Zoom catch-up. So until next time, I'll see you later.